Hello, welcome to Lil's Vintage World. This video is a book review of Kitted Out, Style and Youth Culture in the Second World War by Caroline Young. I was very kindly sent this copy for review from the History Press, who are the publishers. After I requested it, I said, please, pretty please, may I have a copy for review? And they very kindly sent me one. Thank you so much, History Press, for sending me this book, because I loved it, and I loved it so much it has to have its own separate review, so here we are. So what is Kitted Out all about? Oh, that rhymes. So Kitted Out is, do you know what, it's quite difficult to explain, but I'll do my best. This is a detailed retelling of the story of World War II. It's non-fiction though, so story in the broader sense, but told through different services such as the Wrens, the Bomb Girls, the Land Girls, the RAF, the TA. You get the idea, because they all had different uniforms and therefore were in different services and therefore had different experiences of the Second World War. Okay, so it's told about that, but it's the youths of the Second World War. So it was people from, there's a 14-year-old in here because they lied about their age, but mostly from like 18 upwards, these young adults. You're not going to get here like full-blown mid-30s. That's not going to happen. It's just the youths of the Second World War. And I was really loving this book right from the get-go, because my grandparents were born like 1920, so they were the youths of Second World War, and actually a lot of the experiences that were told in here I have been told stories of by my grandparents, and it was wonderful to hear and to reminisce again, because sadly I haven't had grandparents for quite a few years, so it was really nice to hear the stories being told once more. This is such an unusual book because this is part history book, okay, it's part telling you the story of World War II. Okay, it's one of those books, yeah? It's part one of those. It's part memoir, because what Caroline Young does is she talks about something and then as her evidence she'll put in a memoir of someone telling the story, which I think is wonderful. But then it's also a book on the history of fashion as well. And it's also a social history book as well. And it's all those things combined, and I've never read anything like it, and it's just amazingly wonderful. And I cannot imagine how long this took to research and put together. As soon as you start reading this, it's like, whoa, it's like delving into hundreds of people's lives during the Second World War, and it was absolutely magnificent. As I said, I've never read anything like this before, and I think probably one of the better ways to describe what the book is like is to read you a bit. So I'm going to read a bit from chapter 6, Dreaming of the Sea and the Sky. So I hope you enjoy this little snippet of the book. The Wrens was the most desired service for its chic, flattering navy blue skirt and jacket, cut in the same way as a naval officer. The uniform was topped with a black felt tricorn hat with a laurel, crown and anchor emblem on the front. The kit also included white shirts, black ties, black stockings and knee-length elastic navy blue silk knickers, which were named blackouts and were a source of ridicule for those in the Wrens. The enterprising ones among us promptly cut off the legs and hey presto, trench knickers. We kept one pair intact for inspection though, said Maxine Woodcock. Isn't that wonderful? Learning about fashion and history and social history all combined, and of course learning about Maxine herself. And that's what this book for me was like. It was like this emotional roller coaster. I'd have these moments where I'd be giggling, and then I'd have a moment where I'd completely just well up and just want to burst out crying, but then I wouldn't, because the next page would be funny again, and it's just like, what is going on here? The lives of youths during Second World War, I think, were very different to the lives of, say, older adults during the Second World War. I think every person who experienced the Second World War experienced it differently. And the youths of this time were going through some real difficulties because, of course, a lot of them are teenagers and young adults. You've still got hormones going all around your body. But there was still this expectation of marriage and things like that, which of course people were doing, but it wasn't necessarily a priority to do necessarily. You know, if you've met someone, you probably quite hastily got married. I mean, my maternal grandparents got married during the Second World War. When my grandfather came back from leave, he was in the army. And, you know, people were doing that, but also people were staying single as well and living every single moment, because the reality of war is you don't know when it's going to be your last. And this book just showed the reality of war, of what it was like if you were a young adult, and it blew my mind. It was incredible. Not only did it make me feel closer to my late grandparents, it also made me feel closer to just generally the people that served in World War II. And I had a respect for them before, but I now have an even greater respect and admiration for them. They did an incredible job under such difficult circumstances. This book at times is funny, this book at times is sad, this book at times is harrowing, but it just feels so real and truthful, and it is one of the best non-fiction books that I have ever read in my life. So read it. I think some of these snippets should be put out into schools. When we were studying the wars, I think it'd be really interesting to hear people's stories rather than just the political side of it. I think it makes it a bit real. And yeah, I do think part of this book should be placed into schools for children to learn. Not the too harrowing bits, but some of it anyway. This book also has pictures, some of which will break your heart. There's this one here. This gentleman here, he was part of the long-haired boys at Oxford, and you'll learn all about the long-haired boys at Oxford if you read this book, which were a fascinating bunch of Oxford graduates. So, among many others, of course. So that is it for my review of Kitted Out by Caroline Young. I mean, you can tell that I loved it just from looking at it. Look at all this. It's wonderful. If you couldn't guess already, I gave it 5 stars. If I could give it 50 stars, I would. And if I could force it into your shopping baskets, I would, because I think it's just an important read. And you can thank me later once you've read it. I am going to love this forever and ever. And actually, my dad has already requested that he reads it, because he came round my house the other day and I was just finishing it off, and I got to a point and I paused it to make lunch, and while I was making lunch he was reading snippets and he was like, "Oh, I really got into that. Can I borrow it after you?" So it's now heading off to my dad to read it, and he will thoroughly enjoy it as well. So thank you so much for watching. Take care, and I shall see you soon for the next video. Bye for now.